Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe Chaffee Weather Show. It's Saturday, the 25th of May, 2019, the first day of the three-day Memorial Day holiday weekend. I'm actually on my way to work, which is why I have a suit, I have a shirt and tie on a Saturday afternoon. The weather here in my area in the Northeast is beautiful so far today. There are some clouds on the satellite. We'll take a look at that. We've got another round of severe weather for the plains. And we haven't really been talking too much about the fact that while all of that has been going on with that deep trough out in the west, there's been this ridge in the southeast that has been sitting there for this week and through this weekend and into next week. And of course, this time of year when that happens, and any time of year that happens, that's going to mean for warmer than normal and drier than normal conditions in the southeast. But when you have it happening in May, June, July, and August, in that time frame in September, you are talking about really hot temperatures and an early season heat wave, which is exactly what they're seeing in the southeast. They're going temperatures topping out in the 90s to near 100 degrees today, and some areas getting into above 100 degrees. That's going to continue probably for much, if not all, of the work week next week. Maybe a little bit of relief coming toward the end of the week, but this is going to be a very, very long stretch. And it comes, by the way, with sinking air in that upper high, so there's really very little chance of any kind of shower or thunderstorm to develop, and at least temporarily bring a little bit of relief. Although then that boosts up the humidity, so there's always a downside to these things. So we're going to I'm doing the live stream now in the middle of the day because I have to work this afternoon and this evening, and I'm working in WPIX TV in New York City, so I won't have live stream access there. And I'm going to keep this stream relatively short, so this way folks that don't catch it live can pop it on later in the day. So just get a quick roundup of what's going on weather-wise. So hang on, I'm going to just switch frames here. Okay, so first off, these are noontime temperatures in the southeast, and we're going to go much higher than this in the next few hours. We are already seeing some readings up around 94, 95, a couple of 97s showing up. Looks like Augusta maybe at 97 at the moment, and I'm not sure what that is northwest of. That is Clarendon Plantation. That station observation is at 97. Macon is at 93. Atlanta, a little cooler at 88. There's a little pocket of upper 80s there in northwest Georgia. And this hot weather is going to probably push up. You're going to see 90s across through Tennessee and then back through Alabama and Mississippi. But really the core of the heat, because of where the upper high is in the southeast. And that's where it pretty much stays through the Memorial Day holiday weekend. And meantime, up my way, as we look a little bit further north, it's in the pleasant upper 60s and low 70s right now because we're getting a nice south wind. We have some sunshine, a little bit of patchy cloudiness here and there, and we are beginning to set up. Whoops, how did that happen? That was from last night. All right, I'll have to get rid of that. This is what happens when you move your mouse a little bit too fast. Okay, so let's move on to the severe weather risk. I just was going to say we've got a warm front setting up here in the east with a cold front to follow. So here's your risk areas for the rest of today and for tonight. We have this enhanced risk from SPC running from northern Texas, across western Oklahoma, southwestern Kansas, a larger area of slight risk that extends up into northwest Missouri and over Kansas City. And the Yankees are playing a doubleheader in Kansas City today, so there's going to be a severe weather threat. It'll be interesting to see if any storms do show up during the games. And also, we don't want to forget that there's an area of slight risk across much of northeastern Ohio into the western half of Pennsylvania and southwestern New York. The marginal risk doesn't quite reach. It reaches, just touches into eastern Pennsylvania. Oh, looks like they've just done a little bit of an adjustment there. They've kind of tucked it down right into northern Virginia, and the slight risk has been pushed down into northern West Virginia and western Maryland. And the western edge of that risk line has been pushed back into Indiana. They literally has just done this while we're doing this live stream. It doesn't look like they've touched the area back out to the west. And as of 12:35 Eastern time, we don't have any severe weather watch boxes up. So if you're watching this on a replay later today that same holds, make sure you go to your local National Weather Service office forecast page to get the latest information regarding severe weather. And you can find that on weather.gov. And a quick roundup of the next couple of days. So for Sunday, we're looking at a marginal to slight risk in southern Ohio, back into Indiana and northern West Virginia, and a very small portion of southwest PA, just touching western Maryland. And another busy day in almost the same areas today, except it gets expanded northward up into Nebraska and on up into parts of South Dakota. The day 3, that is the day 2 convective outlook. And for day 3, which is now Monday, Memorial Day, the slight risk from Nebraska over the state of Iowa into Illinois to Chicago, northwest Indiana, southern Wisconsin, and a small portion of southwestern Minnesota. So the plains going to be very busy over the next couple of days. Let's just look quick at the satellite loop, and the trough in the west is still working its magic here. You see all these clouds up streaming up from Mexico and into Texas, and you can also see the Gulf flow. Look at those clouds. See how the high clouds just kind of they make the turn and start pushing northward. That's not just certainly at the high level moisture that is streaming up from the tropics, but we also probably have the low level moisture as well is streaming northward, pushing dew points up into the 70s with temperatures up close to 90. Meanwhile, look in the southeast with that upper high in play. You really have all this sinking air, so you have a lot of clear skies. And yesterday's weather system that moved up into the plains now, of course, is weakening and moving toward the Great Lakes. And this is pushing the warm front, cold front combination here in the east. And we're seeing some high clouds coming over the top. There's rain in southern Canada, north of Lake Ontario. So we're seeing that the high cloudiness from that getting blown off, and it's shooting southward. Remember, you've got a trough out to the east, and you've got a ridge to the south. So you basically have this, you're on the edge of this northwest flow. So moisture that's coming from across the southern Canada, north of the Great Lakes, then just makes a turn, and then gets evected southeastward, drying to some degree as it does so. So you're not seeing a total, complete overcast. But some of those high clouds are going to start picking up they're going to start thickening up as we go through the late afternoon and into tonight as this warm frontal boundary begins to set up. All right, so on the forecast, we've been on this idea that much of the time from my neck of the woods, eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England, was going to be dry for the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and we are still on that path. We're fine for the rest of today. Then tonight looks like a lead area of showers develops after about 7 or 8 o'clock across New Jersey, New York City, and Long Island. I think that makes sense to me. And then it moves out, leading us to what I think is going to be an okay Sunday, although a warm and humid one, because now we're waiting for a cold front, and that's producing some showers and storms. This is for Sunday in parts of Ohio and into West Virginia. But it looks to me like we may actually see much of this stuff pass to the south and east, and that means that even though I'm going to leave in the chance that there could be a shower or storm tomorrow evening or tomorrow night, we may escape and not see much of anything. And meanwhile, here's your development into the plains. Most of this happens late this evening and tonight across, at least in the NAM's view, it wants to develop some thunderstorms. It doesn't really look all that impressive on the NAM. I would just be really cautious with these models because either the mesoscale models have really not done a good, they've done a better job out in the plains showing how the precip evolves. They have not done a good job here in the Northeast with respect to the convective development. So just to bear that in mind. This is overnight in Oklahoma and Kansas where you're seeing this severe weather breakout, and then it just goes into a lull during the day tomorrow. And then here's your flare up that comes up as you go into Sunday night and Monday. As we showed you, the risk area shifts northward on Monday. And meanwhile, here in the east, no weather issues at all. Memorial Day really should be a pretty nice day. Sunday's going to be very warm and humid. Most areas will be in the 80s. Monday, a different story. It'll be a little cooler, probably mid 70s to around or just over 80 as another warm front sets up. And I want to address that the heat in the southeast because as we move into midweek, there is that boundary between that hot air, that really hot air, is going to get close. Here it is on the GFS for Wednesday. If you notice here, the isobars are punching eastward from Virginia to off the Virginia-Delaware coast. So there's a warm front setting up there with some showers in my neck of the woods for Tuesday afternoon. And then it looks like the warm front wants to get through. So I think we're going to see some very warm to borderline hot air pushing up Wednesday and Thursday before we finally get another frontal boundary to come through for Friday and for next Saturday to dry things, bring the humidity down, get the showers out of here, and see weather conditions that are in general improvement. The overall upper pattern this week is one where we continue to just watch the trough in the west relax to some degree. But, again, there's still energy out there. There's your ridge in the southeast this weekend. It's east-west oriented across the Gulf states, and it's on the flat side. It's not, when I say flat, it's oriented east-west as opposed to north-south and just kind of forcing a southwest flow to the west of it and a northwest flow to the east of it, pushing up into New England and into southeastern Canada. Instead, it just kind of lays there from off the South Carolina, Georgia coast and extends westward through the Gulf states. So that's keeping the heat wave in check. And as we go through next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, you start to see the ridge pop up a little bit here. This is where you start to get that ridge to pop up into New England along about Tuesday, Wednesday. And of course, you've got another deep trough in the southwest that heads up into the plains. More severe weather later this week for the plain states. And then gradually, late in the week, you get this upper low that strengthens in Canada. So the jet in Canada strengthens at least enough to get weather systems moving. And now finally, you're getting a bit of a relaxation in the trough pattern in the west toward the end of next week. As instead of having a deep trough, you just have this sort of west to east zonal flow, relatively zonal flow. There's some short waves embedded in there, but it's a basic west to east flow, but it's certainly not as dynamic. Notice that the upper high by the end of next week, after it shifts a bit eastward, actually drops southward because of that wrapped up upper low at Hudson Bay. That will probably bring some relief to the very hot conditions in the southeast as long as we get this sort of flat look. The other thing I would point out about this, and I've been talking about early season tropical storm development, if it's going to happen, you've got that at the point that we get to next weekend, the upper high is pretty far to the south. So it would suggest to me that pressures would be higher than normal in the Gulf of Mexico and on up into the Caribbean. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get a tropical system, but it is a bit of a work against when you have higher pressures. You like to see a situation like this to some degree. The way you have it here now with the upper high in the southeast creates a condition of lower than normal pressures down in the Caribbean, in this instance, particularly in the Southwest Caribbean. But it looks like the way things are going into the next week, we're going to see those pressures not change too much. And then as the upper ridge sinks southward into the Gulf and down into South Florida, this is where I think you're going to probably see pressures running too high for at least the very, very start of hurricane season. This is a strong, Erica, you were pointing out those strong jet winds from that you're seeing in the high levels of the atmosphere. This is a pretty deep trough that's along the west coast this weekend and shooting energy. So it's not a surprise at all. You've got these really strong upper level winds coming in to Southern California and down into the Baja Peninsula and just kind of shooting on up toward the northeast from there. It's been a signature of these deep troughs in the west have just been kind of unrelenting in the last couple of weeks, with the Pacific jet being, just a west-east fire hose out there. It is starting to change out there in the Pacific itself. You're getting this deep upper low in the Aleutians extending south to Hawaii, going into the middle part of next week. So that's going to help eventually eject that trough out of the west coast, which should start to cut down on the incidence of these widespread severe weather outbreaks that we've been seeing. All right, so let's come back to just going to come real quick to the board, because you know what, the weather is too nice for you guys to be watching live streams unless you're doing it outside on a beach chair. Hang on one second here. There we go. So nice to see those of you who have taken the time to jump on. John Chris Smith, Erica Baker, G. But Treesful. That's a nice name. Welcome. I think you're new to the board. I haven't seen you on here. And Scott Briller has just jumped on as well. Snow the other day was the 11th measurable snow in Flagstaff, Arizona. Yeah, they are up at almost 7,000 feet. They are way up. On my list of places to go one day. And Jimmy Z, New Jersey. The hammering in the plains does just continues. And yeah, the weather conditions here are very nice. Then partly sunny and cool, Steve LaPointe, in New York City, which is where I'm headed to. Iron Mine 10, nice to see you. Timothy Veltman. And Dio Nankamar is on. Jason Barry. Great. Awesome. All right. I think that pretty much covers it today. I don't, there really isn't too much else going on. Spring is kind of tough sometimes. You get the severe weather. You don't get these wholesale, you don't get these wholesale storm, looking for these big storms to develop that require you to just watch them evolve for the course of days. Then the nature of the forecasting and the observing that you do in the springtime and going into the summer is a little bit different. You don't have these large scale systems for the most part. You have these smaller scale systems, but at least in the last couple of weeks, the systems have really been more large scale than anything else. And now we're going to just kind of relax things down going forward, hopefully, as we head into June. Looks like, I think in the long range, eventually we're going to have to come get some sort of pattern flip from this, and maybe that'll come to the middle and latter part of June. Some people that I read up on from time to time that are into the long range are talking about maybe toward the middle or latter part of June to see some kind of pattern shift go to happen, that the seeds for that shift have already started to bear a little bit of proof of fruit in the Pacific as the pattern starts to change over there. So it always, with these pattern changes, I've always said many times, they are not singular events. More often than not, they are these very long grinding processes that occur. And they are frustrating to watch, especially if you have a certain outcome in mind. It looks like it's going to get to that outcome, then it doesn't, or it gets to something a little bit different than what you envisioned. So it usually takes a course of a couple of weeks to watch it play through, but we'll see where it takes us when we get there. Okay, last question from Ryan Ford. Do I think we shift to a trough in the east as opposed to the west? I don't know. We could very well wind up going to a big ridge in the east. I'm not so sure. I mean, I know I've seen a couple of people speculate on the idea that maybe we would have some kind of big ridge building in the east, and that would create maybe some long duration heat and humidity with lower than normal rainfall. I don't know. I'm just kind of openly throwing it out there. I'm not sure where exactly this is going to head, but I'm sure we're going to have um, um, fun doing it. Jersey Jeff is on from Mays Landing, New Jersey. Welcome aboard. You just joined Patreon, and I'm very appreciative of that. I hope you're enjoying it. And yes, Erica describes it correctly. You're part of the motley crew now at this point. Okay, wrapping it up here. Have a great rest of your Memorial Day weekend. I'm probably not going to live stream on Sunday. I will do live streams on Monday because I am working. So I'm going to take tomorrow off and just take a break for a bit. I will be putting posts up on the website, and also you can catch me on the Facebook page and Patreon, guys. You'll get your posts as well. I think with not much going on locally, tomorrow's a good day for me to maybe do a little fishing. So we'll do that. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. And while you're enjoying, just a reminder once again on Monday, please take a little bit of time to, even if it's just a minute, to remember those who have lost their lives defending our nation and defending our freedoms around the world in the wars that have occurred in this young century and in the century prior. Um, it's We owe those that protect us, the soldiers, the Navy, the Air Force, Marines, etc. We owe them a moment of silence for Memorial Day in remembrance of those who have given up their lives. Have a great day, rest of your day. Please be safe out there, and we'll probably see you next on Monday.